Hi, everyone. I'm back for another episode of Let's Talk About It with Kari Lewis, a licensed clinician at Marquette University.
Thank you for inviting me.
Kari, you work with tons of student athletes in your day-to-day. You're actually at the university seeing what's going on. Can you talk a little bit about mental health in the student athletic space right now?
So prior to me actually coming over to the athletic department, I worked at the University Counseling Center. When I transitioned over in athletics, maybe about 2 years ago, some of the concerns were very different. There's perfectionism. There's anxiety in so many different areas of life. So you have your athletic life, you have your school life, your relationships with your friends or lack thereof. Watching them balance so many things at once really actually amazed me because it reminds me a little bit of life outside of college. When I talk about the uniqueness of them, some of their concerns are the same, right, as non-student athletes, but it's so much more intense.
You hit on the perfection aspect and the fact that so many of us are maybe so detail oriented or goal oriented. I really started off my career being extremely black and white. I either was a great athlete or I was a
Yep.
bad athlete. And a lot of the time, who I was and everything else I felt about myself was connected to my athletic performance. To give some perspective for those who aren't athletes, why is it so important for Marquette to include an extra resource specifically for student athletes beyond athletes just going to the health center themselves?
Well, shout out to Marquette for trying to be ahead of the curve. Our student athletes are pulled in so many different directions. And so to find that extra time to locate a clinic off campus, make an appointment, and a lot of the times, right, it doesn't fit with their schedule. Having an embedded position, I think, is really, really important because students can, in between practice, just shoot up to my office, check in for 30, 45 minutes, and then go back down to practice or working out.
We talk so much on Let's Talk about student athletes advocating for themselves, but I do think that that's made so much easier and when you have people that are walking around the department.
It's important to share that us as mental health clinicians, we lean on one another, right? We lean on the different resources and different departments that are on campus to assist. I really try to space my calendar out so that I'm not so overwhelmed with therapy notes and therapy sessions where I can't walk around and meet my students where they are.
A lot of the help that you give to student athletes actually isn't in a formal meeting space. What can an athlete expect from their clinician? Let's talk both if they had a formal meeting with you and even just maybe someone coming to Marquette next fall.
I have scheduled time on Wednesdays, and I call these walk-in Wednesdays. So it's completely informal. Sometimes, let's just say if you get into an argument with a roommate or practice was so crappy and you really just want to have that space to talk about it, if they're not coming in for walk-in Wednesdays, each student that I meet with will have a consultation with me. It's kind of similar to walk-in Wednesdays, but this is pretty formal. Each student has a consultation, and then based off that consultation, then they'll move forward to having a complete intake. Confidentiality is very important, and I could lose my license, and I'm very vulnerable and transparent when I say that. So that's very important to me.
Demystifying treatment, demystifying clinician. There's all of these words that seem very big and scary. And if you're not taking that class or you're not experiencing it, it can be a huge barrier to entry, even when you have a clinician like yourself at the department.
What I often see is that this is the first time that our students are growing into adults. They have to talk about their feelings. They have to resolve this conflict, whether it be on a team or have a difficult conversation with their coach. They have to do that for the first time by themselves. I know this is super cliche, but as a therapist, I have a feelings wheel in my office. And I'm like, start here. What color are we feeling today?
I love that. I definitely needed a feelings wheel during my sophomore year. I really like this idea of preparation. When I was going through my mental health struggle, that was really scary for me. This whole college athletics experience is preparing me for hardships in the future. This is the hardest thing I've ever gone through. What do you mean that this is just the beginning and just a preparation? Can you give us some enlightenment on what it really means for college athletics to be a preparation for us in the future?
I do think it is a great preparation. And when you touched on mental health, right? If we can get in now, right, as student athletes, I think that will make the transition a little bit easier once you get into the real world. Because even with that and all of the hats that you're wearing, now when you start working, there's one less hat that you're wearing, and that's a student athlete.
I'm going to give you a couple of scenarios, major topics that I think student athletes struggle with. 10 seconds or so. What idea, what phrase would you give student athletes to help them through the scenario? You have a sophomore or junior who has been spending every summer putting in the work, has been waiting for their moment, and is just constantly getting pulled on and off the court. They don't have a consistent role on the team, and they're struggling, they're questioning themselves.
I would pose a question to them. What's your relationship with failing? Try to peel back some of those layers, because it's not fun, right, to fail. But let's talk about that relationship and dynamic between the two.
A freshman who's always been the best on their team. They've come in, they've been highly recruited. They think they're about to just take the world by storm.
Yeah.
And they get here preseason and they're struggling.
There's so much going on. There's this transition into this new world. What are some of the things that we can learn from this difficult transition? What are some of the things that you are looking to take away, right? You want to get back to where you were and being one of the best. How do we get there? And so having those conversations about transition and change, sometimes they won't happen right away, but we know that there's work that's required.
Awesome. Thank you, Kari, for that advice. I know that will help athletes beyond just the ones in your department. So thank you for coming on today. Hey guys, it's Sydney. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Let's Talk About It. If you did, make sure to leave a review and send it to a friend. Let's keep this conversation going. I'll see you guys next week.